You're listening to the IB4E Coaching Podcast.
Brought to you by IB4E Coaching, business coaching for executives, entrepreneurs, and small business professionals. Learn more at ib4e-coaching.com. Hey, Coach Harlan here. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you guys are having a phenomenal week. I'm having a great week, and I'm excited to introduce you to my guest today. Please help me welcome Richard Blank. Richard's journey in the call center space is filled with twists and turns. When he was 27 years old, he relocated to Costa Rica to train over 5,000 employees for one of the larger call centers in San Jose. With a mix of motivational public speaking style, backed with tactful and appropriate rhetoric, Richard shared his knowledge and trained over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers. Richard Blank has the largest collection of restored American pinball machines and antiques Rock-Ola jukeboxes in Central America, making gamification a strong part of the CCC culture. He's the chief executive officer of Costa Rica's call center since 2008. Richard, welcome to the program.
Coach, so happy to be with you and your audience today. Really happy to be here.
This is awesome. What got you started collecting pinball games and Rock-Ola jukeboxes?
Well, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and one of the greatest places to be in the world was an arcade. I could play asteroids for 45 minutes, but I've put that 50 cents into a pinball machine, it could be done in a minute. So it just seemed too expensive for me back in the day when you don't have the skills. So today, arcades are going out of business. People prefer their phones or certain consoles, and a lot of people say they've played virtual pinball, but that's for another time and another place. Yeah. But I go down there with a couple buddies in a truck and some cash and pick up a machine for a couple $100, fix out some CPUs and other stuff, and then you're sitting on a game that could be worth $5,000. But I tell you what, one man's trash is another man's treasure. It brings me such joy when I do my pinball marathons on Sunday. And my favorites, though, Coach, you're going to love this. It's from the 70s. I love the electromechanical machines that were just more on contacts compared to CPUs. And I just found when they painted the wood on the play field, you could see sometimes the cracks. The marquee art is incredible. Yep. And the entire machine is really just a work of art. And so when you are listening to the sounds and you're focusing, to me, I can decompress, release stress, but have the greatest time in the world. So that's why I started collecting these machines.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can stand there for hours and hours playing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Very cool. All right. I want to talk about the gamification of how you implement that in your business and stuff, and how you did that, because I think that's something a lot of business owners don't understand. Putting these games in to engage your employees and a lot of times make them a lot more productive, I think is awesome. And there's other stuff I want to talk to, but before we get started, I've got some questions that I ask every one of my guests. Now, the listeners know these are the questions from the TV show Inside the Actor's Studio, where the host James Lipton asks these same questions of his guests from Hollywood, TV, film, and stage. And I figure if they're good enough for the Hollywood elite, they're certainly good enough for my guests. So, Richard, if you're ready, I've got 10 questions for you.
All right. Hope to not disappoint. What you got?
No, not at all. All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? I like the word búho, which means owl in Spanish. I like how it sounds, and I like the significance behind it.
Very cool. What is your least favorite word?
No.
Yeah.
And that's not the KNOW kind. No. Even though that annoys me too.
Yep. All right. What turns you on?
Happiness.
What turns you off?
Negativity.
Yes. What sound or noise do you love?
Purring. Like a cat.
Like a cat. What sound or noise do you hate?
The worst sound in the world is when you do the nails on the chalkboard.
Yep.
Or when your mother's grilling you. Can I choose too?
Yeah. That too. When you hear your full name being screamed out of the back door of the house, it's like,
yeah, from 5 blocks away. Yeah, of course.
I'm in trouble. All right. Question 7. What is your favorite curse word?
Dookie, but in the other term. Yeah.
Good job. Good job. All right. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh my God, I'd love to be a children's book author. Nice. Yeah.
What's holding you back? You got
Uh,
stories.
my call center. I'll be on that next. Wait till I finish that, and I'll be able to focus on the other thing. But I cannot
There you go.
wait to start creating that. Yes.
Nice. Very cool. All right. What profession would you not like to do?
Telemarketer. I'm only kidding. What would I not want to do? God, there's so many things you just don't want to do. But so I just want to close up. Sometimes when you see a job that you don't want to do and then you do it, you realize that on the surface, and when people complain, but I guess that the job that would be the worst for me is cleaning toilets.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
not the fact of earning an honest living. It's not even degrading.
Yeah.
It's just dirty. I
Yeah.
just wouldn't want to be there.
No. That's just one step above politician, right?
Or used car salesman, sure.
Or used cars. All right. Final question. If heaven exists, what would you say, or what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome.
Nice. Anything
Welcome.
short of that would be concerning, right?
Well, they say lucky. Yeah, you got that.
Yeah.
Or mistake.
How'd you get in here? Yeah. Who left
How
the
did
door
you get
open?
in here? But when someone says welcome, when I close my eyes, coach, I imagine open arms. I imagine warm fireplace and a home cooked meal and a best friend. And so I think it's an extremely powerful word for people.
Very nice. Very good. All right. We're going to take a short break. When I come back, we're going to talk about how you got your start, what possessed you to move to Costa Rica to start the call center or work in the call center. We're going to talk a little bit about what you do now and how you've grown the business and what's on the horizon for you. And at some point, transition into courage and leadership.
Okay.
All right. So, listeners, we're going to be talking about all that and probably a lot more right after this. So, stick with us. And I'm back with my guest, Richard Blank. Richard, thanks again for calling in for the program stuff. It's good to have you here. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, coach.
So at 27, you made the bold move to head down to Costa Rica to train thousands of telemarketers. What inspired that leap and that leap of faith? And did you have any idea it would turn out or turn into what it is today?
Oh, what happened to me was $1 million shot. Stars were aligned. I don't know how this even happened, but I tell you what, it was built on momentum. Mhm. When I was in middle school, I gravitated towards Spanish because my family used to take trips to Mexico. So besides having fun, I would come back with vocabulary. And I was getting a lot of positive reinforcement from teachers in the outside Latino community. Then I decided to double down on it and be a Spanish major at the University of Arizona. Okay. And then post grad, I got a couple jobs. But at 27 years old, I was sending out resumes via fax machine. And my cousin Joe says, "Hey, why don't you come down to Costa Rica? A good friend of ours owns a call center. Why don't you teach English for a couple months and take a break? Come back." Coach, if you can get past your parents' guilt, you can live anywhere in the world. So I went down there for 60 days and decided to stay. I fell in love with my current wife and I learned the call center industry from the inside out, not at sea level.
Nice.
And then when I was 35 years old, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and start the business. Now, it's not what you think. A lot of people like plug and plays, or they'll overextend themselves, or they believe that penthouse and Porsches and
Yeah.
silk suits is the way to go. Yeah, but that also might make you broke, especially when there's a setback. And so it was slow and steady, my friend. I was renting turnkey stations at a glorified internet cafe, and I could scale that way for a couple of years. I could pay the taxes and overhead and make a margin. And then when I had the stability of clients and some capital, I decided to rent space. But the beauty of my industry is, and it's also a detriment, is that there's an attrition and centers close. So buying used Dells and used equipment. So instead of paying 80% import tax and paying a lot of money, I'm getting it for a fraction of the cost. And I was able, in a very conservative way, to build out my server room and the rows and the seats for people. I did not overextend. And then after 6 years, I had enough money to purchase a property, renovate it, third floor it, art deco it, neon light it, And there you go. You got a call center that can hold 300 people. And so it's like the
Wow.
game of life, my man. We started in the tent, ended in the
Yep.
mansion. But I tell you what, there was a lot of progression and I saw the growth. And so as grandma said to me, if you can't do it in cash, you just don't do it at all. And so I didn't need to play that game at a call center. Most clients don't even come visit. And so I didn't need to have the bells and the whistles, but I needed to make it aesthetically and physiologically pleasing for the agent. Just couldn't be a boiler
Sure.
room. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, man, it was just a good progression. And I think sometimes when it's your wheelhouse and you've learned a business, starting, as they say in the mailroom to the president, I
Mhm.
earn the respect of the agents. So when
Nice.
people come walking in, I just don't write checks. I can make the phone call, explain soft skills and metrics and KPIs, and they look at me and they go, "Wow, this gringo not only knows that, but he also knows Spanish." And so I've almost separated myself in a very non-threatening and diplomatic way from most expatriates that try to start a business in a foreign country.
Yep. Very cool. And then what type of clients do you support?
I'll tell you five I don't do, coach. I
Okay.
will not do sports books, casinos, stocks, pharmacies, or sweepstakes. No matter
Nice.
what Hollywood does to glamorize it, I'm not going to compromise my ethics, values, or morals to earn a dollar. But whom do I work with? Well, we do sales, appointment setting, lead gen, customer support, back office support, and non-voice support. But I work with law firms and transportation, movies and music, right? And so real estate. And so these are the sort of clients in the United States and Canada that would need to expand, but don't have the time to make the phone calls, or
Right.
they'd rather just have it tee it up for them or do a hot lead transfer or just clean a list for them that they've been sitting on for 9 years and just never made the
Yes.
calls. And so a lot of my infrastructure through a predictive dialer, quality control, and other bells and whistles that can assist in increased production and conversions and script writing, rhetoric, onboarding, coaching. These are the sort of things people know exist, but just have never done before. And so, not as a consultant, but more as a partner, it's my pleasure to share that experience with clients, so then we can blend accordingly.
Nice. Very cool. And all Spanish speaking, right? Do they have like another call center that does their English calls? And you
Oh,
do,
I mostly do English.
oh, really?
Oh
All your
yeah,
folks
and
down there.
well, yeah, I hire everyone that's
Oh,
bilingual. They need an 80% English. Unfortunately,
oh,
I mean, if I were going to hire Spanish, you can get that 1,000 places for cheaper. And so I'm
yeah.
doing something very specific.
Got it.
Anyone that speaks English bears the mark of higher education. What a skill set for this labor pool.
Right.
And so when we do get accounts and they ask me strategy, I say, listen, if you're calling the whole United States and you're doing it for a widget, why don't we start off in the Southwest and give me some
Yeah.
underhand pitches with a wiffle ball?
There
So
you
at
go.
least if I can start this thing, I can get you an ROI quickly with the Latino market, and then we can go English or whatever you want to do. But
Nice.
I tell you what, there is an art to speech. There is a structure to rebuttals and introductions
Mhm.
and conclusions and transitional sentences and positive escalations. And so these are the sort of things, these soft skills that agents can use outside of the office in order to enrich
Yeah.
their lives. And so, coach, that's the kind of thing you and I do. We balance
Yeah.
bikes and we
Yep.
pay it forward. That's
Yep.
the goal.
Nice. Yeah, that and there are a lot of people I know that could use some of those skills too. I hate cold calling. And I know it's just uh, building the rapport, having come back to whatever their negative statement is to it. It takes practice. It takes practice. You script all that for your teams?
I do, but coach, I got a follow-up question for you. What do you hate about telemarketing, a man of utmost confidence? What do you hate about the
I
telemarketing? Because this is the sort of thing we can address.
okay,
Your audience would love to
absolutely.
hear. Do you hate getting
Absolutely.
hung up on? Is that the
Um,
thing?
yeah, and I take it personally, and it's
Okay.
it's making the call. Once I get on there and start talking to somebody, I'm fine. I can talk to anybody. It's getting that phone and picking it up and thinking I'm probably interrupting somebody's lunch. I'm probably interrupting somebody's meeting or interrupting their day, and that's the part that gets me because I don't like getting cold calls. My phone rings. I look
Coach,
at it. If it says telemarketer or something like that, it's like,
listen, a wingman can bat 1,000 if you have the good front man. It's the front man that walks across the dance floor and starts talking to people. That's the
yeah,
ace. That's the legend. And as Mike Damone said in Fast Times at Ridgemont High when he was talking to Rat, He's telling them that when you put out a vibe, that's the plan. That's the attitude. And that's very important. And why would you take a person? They don't even know you coach. And you're calling people when their puppy ran away or they got a telemarketing call or something. It's when they know who you are and start insulting your mother and kids. That's a problem. And so if you can take a hit, then you become a boxer. If you can take a hit, you'll make $1 million. And if you decide to like it, because it doesn't hurt. NO means they don't KNOW enough. If they hang up on you, they're doing you a favor. Professional telemarketers know if you're doing a perfect play, they're saving you time and saving you money. You're not wasting your time on that person anymore. But you should be used to someone asking you, what is your name? Well, I appreciate you asking me that, Coach. My name is Richard Blank. Okay, who is Richard Blank? Coach, that's an excellent question. Richard Blank is the CEO of Costa Rica's call center. There's a technique called the buffer boomerang technique. I'll name drop you. Let you know it's a great question, repeat the question and send it back, adjusting the tone. And then before you transfer me to the decision maker, I'll do a positive escalation. I'll go, Coach, you were amazing. I'm going to let your boss, Billy, know that when you get transferred. You transfer me to Billy and I let him know how great you are. You think he's going to hang up on me? The defense goes from a 10 to a 2. And I take that 8 and I use that for forward momentum. And then not only did you do it verbally, but you do it in writing. So when I do my pipeline and call your company back, Coach answers the phone. I go, hey, Coach, it's Richard. Is this Richard Blank? It is. What's up, Coach? He goes, man, I've been here for 15 years. You're the first person that ever said something to Billy. And then all of a sudden you give me the company culture, the goodies, the extension, when to call them. And then when Billy at the end of the day has 10 prospects, and I might be more expensive than in the Philippines, but he pulls in his confidant, Coach, and says, hey, yo, Coach Harlan, who should we choose to give this telemarketing account? Philippines is cheaper. Yeah, but Richard Blank knew my name, and this is prior to any sort of contract. So imagine his character during chaos and the way that we can work with him. Maybe we can offset that cost through merit. And that's how I'm able to get most of these accounts, my friend.
Nice. Almost like you've done this before. That's awesome.
1,000 times.
That is awesome. 1,000 times. So starting a business abroad that's no easy task. What were some of the biggest culture shocks and lessons you had to learn early on?
Well, let's go with the shock and then we'll go with the lessons. And I must have been exceptionally ignorant thinking this, is that if I show up with a smile and a handshake that they're going to treat me a certain way. Yeah, they'll treat me a certain way, but they'll also charge me 20% more. And that's being nice. It's usually 50%. And so I realized real fast, there's a local cost and a gringo cost. And so what I needed to do is to have a face man for me, the face man of the A team to go out and negotiate for me on the sly. So I can save that money and get things done. So that was a shock. But I also realized about weight. There's absolutely no way that I have the time to be certified in Cisco, to be an attorney here in this country, to know all of the labor laws. Are you out of your mind? No, seriously. And so I needed to hire specialists to focus on those things for me. And that was the only way for me to expand, is by getting those people. And so that reduced a lot of stress. You can delegate, but you also need to have faith in people. Have I been disappointed? Like, you have no idea. I've had some people that broke my heart, but then I've had other individuals that renewed my faith. And so that's a part about doing the business. And if I could give any sort of advice to people, besides a specialist, IT or things like that, if you are promoting, promote from within. And it shouldn't matter the age, because they're not going to get the respect of their fellow co-workers. If you bring in somebody else, they just don't know the rhythm of the group. They didn't raise the ranks. They don't have the scars and the happy and the sad times with them. And so I learned that mistake as well. I just don't like fast talkers that are shiny objects. I like things that have more depth and foundation to them. Why? Because they're freaking consistent, Coach. They're consistent. They're not happy when you hire them and miserable the next day and start flaking on Fridays. I want the real player, and maybe I want a squire to a knight, someone that could be in their teens that are bilingual, but I can train them because they have no bad habits. They've never worked at a center before. And then they're like a mini me. And so I will build an army of these young kids and be their first boss and hopefully their last boss, because they shouldn't be with me forever. But if I can teach them certain things and give them self-reliance and self-confidence, then they'll be ready.
Nice. Nice. So talk to me about the gamification and the fun that you guys have. How does that kind of atmosphere impact the employees' performance and um, the retention level?
So many. Hey, coach, what was your favorite class in high school? Or let's say lower school. It was recess. It wasn't history.
Yeah, yeah.
You made your friends. You let off steam. You recharged batteries. Sometimes the teacher even played kickball with you and you got to see another side of them. But you got to see people laughing. And that's a beautiful side to see of someone. Gamification. It is exceptionally important to have a safe space for individuals at work. And it's not for them to be on their phone in a corner on Instagram or having a cigarette outside. I'm old school. I am a proud Generation X retro gamer. And so I collected these arcade machines. I got 3 fighting machines, Pac-Man machine, ski machine, air hockey table, and all these pinball machines. Now here's the skinny. I had the room for it. I'm in a huge call center. So instead of using locker space, I put in a game room. And I'm there. And so it gives a chance for people to hang out with me off the phone, and we can compete where they can, play a better game than air hockey than me, which they usually don't. But it's the kind of thing where we can chill, we can talk, they can relax. And you want to know why the attrition rate lowers and people stay at a company? I'm there in the morning, right, playing my pinball. And when everyone's walking past me, they tap me on the shoulder and they say, "What's up, Hefe?" Now, a lot of people would say haptics and touch is not appropriate. Depends where they're touching you. But if someone wants to give me an upper shoulder tap, "What's up, Hefe," in the morning? Do you know how much love that is? That someone is comfortable enough not only to say good morning to the boss, but to give him a little love tap. And then he sees me hanging out with the crew in the game room. It kind of reminds me of Paul Newman in the movie Slapshot when he was Reggie. He was the coach, but also a player. I'm the first person to walk the rows, play pinball, take the call, break bread with them, laugh and cry with them. And I think those are the traits of a perfect leader. You show sometimes vulnerability, which makes you even more powerful. And so these are the sort of things that I had to see through the years to make sure I made that part of my repertoire.
Nice. Yeah, show that vulnerability and that helps build that culture where they feel confident enough to bring a problem to you, to talk to you about things, open up rather than hide them, right?
Well, we had to get there. So being vulnerable by letting them potentially beat me in a game of Street Fighter. And then, they beat the boss. What, are you going to get fired? No, but you see how I reacted to it. So maybe with first downs, we'll eventually get that touchdown where coach then, after 10 pinballs, 10 laughs, and 10 moments, you do feel comfortable enough to come and speak with me.
Nice. Very cool. So a lot of leaders talk about company culture, but you've actually created this. Was this the culture you set out to create, or has it been evolving over the years?
Oh, the first culture was a linguistic culture. Mind you this, most people today, coach, are doing omni-channel non-voice, text, emails, and chat. It's misinterpretation, latent, people are used to it. That's why you say most people today do not have the phone skills. Yeah, they do. They're just out of practice. And so for me, first I wanted to do was to enhance their vocabulary. I asked them if they've ever heard of a thesaurus before. Most of them have not. And I'm not doing it to insult them. I'm giving them the greatest gift in the world. Why? Because when you're on the phone and instead of saying, "Hey, coach, how may I help you?" Come on, man, that's not the word to use. You want to use assist, guide, lend a hand. You don't say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry." You say, "For my clarification." There's certain things you can do to readjust tones. And so I'm enhancing vocabulary. People are feeling more confident. We're also working on public speaking, which most people feel more than death. So when I'm doing my training classes, you're going to stand up, you're going to hold the script in your left hand, you're going to speak in front of everyone and use your right hand as an illustrator. I'm going to give you pacing. I'm going to give you pausing. We're going to teach you trigger words. We're going to use tie down questions. So you have checkpoints. So you're not going to get to send me an email, call me back. I will know by the 3rd minute if this is a deal because we keep seeing if it makes sense, sounds good, and may we move forward. Then we also focus on anchoring. If I hear a dog in the background, I love the dog. Like your guitar's back there. You find things you love and you ask 2 or 3 follow-up questions. What's the dog name? What's its breed? And how old's your puppy? How about even using military alphabet? Do you know how many people have served? So
Yep.
when you're confirming emails at the end, which a lot of the time bounce back, or when people have extremely exotic names, do you want to know something? When I get the craziest, most exotic names, when I spell it out military or ask them phonetically how to ask that, they go, Richard Blank, you're one of the few people to ever ask me that. Most people are afraid to ask me how to say my name. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it to be embarrassed. Bro, I've never heard that before. How do you pronounce it? Sometimes in Russian, they have certain letters. I have no idea what to say.
Exactly.
And so they respect that because then I repeat it and I say it. And then with the military alphabet, when people have served, then instead of the call ending, you've extended it like an encore. And so I'm not lying. I'm not taking advantage of people. I'm just being extremely attentive, being in the now, and I'm finding areas to grab that rock to sustain me.
Right.
And we can do these sort of things. And so when people are more engaged in the calls, they enjoy it more. And when people are on the phone, as I say, they start relaxing more. When you can get off, it's almost like, my friend, when they break down that fourth wall in Hollywood, like when Ferris Bueller would look at the camera and do that little thing about sneaking
Right.
out the parents. And
Yep.
so when you can get off script for a second and say, I love dogs too. Yeah, me too. Come on, man. Now you're cool with the person. Or you
Yeah.
talk about how great coach is with Billy. I mean, I've tried to, as I mentioned before, reduce that defense and using that mass into my offense.
Nice. Very cool. And you're giving your workers skills that are going to help them in the future. The public speaking is huge. People don't realize how many times you need to get up and talk to people, and they're afraid to do it. They don't think they can. You're actually giving them those skills to carry forward. That's awesome.
You're going to save marriages, Thanksgiving
Mhm.
dinners, and when people hold things inside and they don't know how to properly, even though telling the truth sometimes will get you in trouble. If people have no way of communicating, sharing, getting it out, that's a problem. You'll get sick on that. And so, not saying that you are being clever, but as I mentioned before, if you need to say something to somebody, the first thing that I do, if it's sensitive, I'll first ask permission. I'll say, Coach,
Nice.
would you mind if I make a suggestion?
Yep.
And since we have a track record, you go, sure, Richie, what you got? And then I would say, before saying, hey, man, you got mustard on your face. No, because you got mustard on your face. I go, listen, man, before I'd go out with my girlfriend or my wife, I got to make sure my hair looks good and everything's good. So go check the mirror real quick, man, before you leave the house. And then you walk in there, yo, man, I got mustard on my face. And I go, exactly. And so a lot of the times what I would do is I would share the example of when I did to then explain to you to relate. And so and it hasn't worked every time because sometimes things
Yeah.
happen outside the office or I don't know all the facts, but I've seen that it has assisted me in buying time to be able to at least hear your side, my side, and see if it makes sense.
Nice. Very cool. So I read something phonetic micro expression.
Reading. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, you've seen the tell signs in poker when people do their nose or they crisscross and match them. Well, you can do it phonetically.
Really?
One of the greatest educators and communicators of all time was the late Helen Keller. Now, she had all 4 senses, but then she lost 3 of them, or 2 of them, excuse me. And she had her taste, touch, and smell. She lost her sight and hearing. And so through Anne Sullivan, not only could she create a language, but she, instead of this isolated area, she was able to communicate with this world. And so when one sense gets reduced, others get enhanced. And in my controlled environment, we are eliminating this taste, touch, and smell. And so the hearing should be expanded. But then people make the argument in regards to visual, but I talk about image streaming. And so you can use descriptive vocabulary and imagination to make your point, which me is more powerful. But let's talk about the phonetic microexpression reading. This can be done in any language. I didn't say semantic, the word. I said phonetic, the sound. And
Okay.
so phonetics, simply put, is broken down into 4 sections. It's tone, rate, pitch, and duration. The tone represents the emotion. For me, you need a consistent variable. So in my professional opinion, your tone should always be confident and empathetic. Okay. You don't want to mirror image some negativity. But then you have the XY chart. You have the speed and the speaking volume. So you have the rate and then the pitch. That is where you mirror image them on how fast and how loud they go. Why? Because if they spike or a dip every 30 seconds, you can almost gauge that. And that's when you usually ask a clarification question if it makes sense or may we move forward. But guess what, coach? Like most things, it could be manipulated. Someone can manipulate their tone, speak faster, slower, louder, or softer. But the real tell sign is something that you can't control. It's the answering speed. Okay? Why do you think the police always show the evidence by the third or fourth question? Mr. Tough Guy cursing crossed arms all of a sudden is crying and pleading. And so I've never really been fooled by a tone rate or a pitch. I'm really, which is really the beauty of the phonetic, because you need the silence to have the sound. And you study that silence because most people can't stay consistent on it. You can't answer me every 3 seconds if something's emotional. And so that's my insurance policy. I will watch, forget your tone of voice. You want to match them, fine. Don't even pay attention to that. Speed and sound and answering speed. If they are off and there's a spike or a dip, clarify it. First down it. If not, you're going to fumble. You'll lose possession. That's why when people say, I was on the phone for 20 minutes and I didn't get the deal. Dude, checkpoint it. I'd rather have a solid 4 minutes than a bad 20. Really. And those are called romantic deaths. Do you know that? That's a great way to jump a cloud and to eliminate that fear or the anxiety that you would have either telemarketing, sales, or even asking someone to dance. I tell you what, if I called you up and I said, the courage to lead, what's up, Coach Harlan? How you doing today? Click. Man, I sounded great before you hung up on me. And I can do that 150 times a day. Why? Because the first thing out of your mouth should be anonymity. I'm not introducing myself and I'm not asking for you. I'm going to say the name of your company and how that company's doing today. Why? Sounds like I've been there before. And then the person, the gatekeeper who might think that I'm selling, asking to speak to you, supervisor available, whatever, their defense drops and there you will hear it. It's a positive reinforcement. You will hear that tone compared to who is this? It'll be who's this? But then I double dip it after saying Richard Blank. I got to make sure I hear is this a salesman? Is this a sales call? I got nailed. But if they go, who is Mr. Sunshine, Richard Blank? Gotcha.
Yeah.
By just saying, the courage to lead. How are you today? And then you're like, yeah, who's this? Richard Blank. Who is Richard Blank? It doesn't sound negative to me now, does it? Compared to, hi, may I speak to Coach Harlan? Is this a sales call? Take me off your list. Do not call again.
Right.
So if anything of nothing, I'm pulling 30-second intros. I can do a company name spike. I can do 2 buffer boomerangs when you ask my name, ask who I am, and then I do the positive escalation, which is you give me the pass to pitch to move. And I can do that. That's a solid intro. 4 steps, 150, 200 times a day. You don't tell me that that's not a long bow. You will definitely be able to get at least 3 minutes out of that to make your case. And then play your odds. And that's when you look at the board and you see I got 44 and Joey next to me's got 2. And then they say, well, Richard might be doing something wrong. Let's listen to his calls. Yeah, coach, listen to my calls. Listen to it in front of everyone. Bring all 50 guys out. And they will hear me and you talking about the guitars, talking about dogs, talking about life. And then they're all going to look at me and I'll look right back at them and just do I know how to talk to the coach. Unlike you guys that keep calling him sir. Stop calling him sir. It's Coach Harlan. Come on, man. You got to connect with the guy.
Is that sir? Is that separation point, right?
That's weird. You're giving C- work. Might as well microwave it. What a terrible way to say sir. What a waste, because you got to use the name. Now, you can't overdo the name, because if I go Coach Harlan, you're going to be like, okay, enough. It's like saying I love you 50 times. And so that's why I'll use your name for the transitional sentences when I'm going to the next topic, like islands. You're the bridge. That name is the bridge and the points to the bridge. But every sentence usually has a personal pronoun, your and are. And in my opinion, that's the cousin of the name drop. I can still say you. You will still pay attention to it, but not as much as coach. But it's good enough to bring them back in like a shepherd with sheep. They don't all walk in a straight line. It's not the movie Babe. And so sometimes you
Right.
got to bring them back by just using,
Yep.
hey coach, because it's non-visual. I can't get your attention there. And so one of the techniques that we use, coaches, is doing a quarter-second slide before the trigger word, which means that when you have your personal pronoun in the middle of a sentence, hey, how is your company doing today? Of course. How is pause, spiking it, your a little bit longer by a quarter-second company doing today? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It
Nice.
brings them in. And so why do I know this? Well, man, when you've listened to 10,000 phone calls
Yeah,
and
no
you see
doubt.
people using soft skill techniques that they're on the phone for 6 minutes compared to two, you start taking note. And so these are the sort of fillers that we use to prolong calls.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the buffer boomerang technique.
Yeah. The
Tell me
buffer
about
boom.
that. Just kind of how that works again, because
It's
you
a
went through it
half
pretty
moon.
quickly.
It's
Okay.
just a half moon. I can give you a very simple thing. Hey, Richard, what's ABC? Coach, that's an excellent question. ABC is 1, 2, 3. Richard, what's 1, 2, 3? Coach, great question. 1, 2, 3 is ABC. Okay, you're -2. So I say, Coach, got to say your name. Great question. I want to have you keep asking me questions. It makes it easier for me. I repeat your question. Why? So you don't have to do it 7 more times. Do you know that one of the metrics is talk time? And to
Hmm.
reduce talk time, but still have a conversion ratio, is they don't need to repeat it twice. And that's why that military alphabet, me repeating your question, or as I call it, catching a tail. So, okay, great. So you're going to get the package on Thursday. So the next question I have is, so a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll catch the tail of the dragon. So I'll make sure that you said, hey, package on Thursday. Yes, coach, you'll get your package on Thursday. So let's talk about the other things. And so I'm able to confirm it, because if not, at the end of the call, you ask me the 20 questions again.
Right. Right.
How about this, coach? The dessert tray technique. Okay, I'll bring out 5 or 6 options for you, but instead of running through them, I'll present each one. Okay, and just like Kathleen Bradley on The Price is Right. Oh man, she was great, wasn't she? And she was Miss Parker in the movie Friday as well. But my point being is that you would mention A and then wait for a positive or negative response. And if you don't respond to any of them, I'm going to throw my dice down. I'm going to say, hey, coach, come on. You got at least like one. You got to rake it, at least try. And
Yeah.
then you move forward from there. And so as I'm saying, this buffer boomerang, it's all about a readjustment of tone. Name drop, great
Right.
question, repeat the question and answer it happy. And so that's just how it works.
Nice. Very cool. So, what's the most underrated soft skill for someone working in sales or customer support?
Listening, complete
Listening.
listening.
Yeah, I 100%.
And it's
100%.
not taking your information. You and I are on a phone call for 10 minutes, but your dog barked for 1 second. That's it. Now, if I were thinking of pizza or somewhere else, I would have missed it. But that boxer, like Chuck Wepner, went 15 with Ali. If I can stay focused for every single step, I might not hit a hole and get out of here and make it. And so I've noticed that's why these 30-second checkpoints are important. It's for resetting and refocusing again. You need drinks in the desert. If not, you'll die. And so a lot, when we listen to these calls, a dog barked. He didn't mention it. So then all of a sudden, I'm just going to look at you and you'll look at me and go, I know, Rich. I go, come on, coach, you missed the dog. Yeah, man, I was thinking of pizza. I go, coach. And so it's one of those things where it's really being in the now. It's taking copious notes. It's asking additional questions. Tell me more about that. Oh, so it's only Thursdays. And so, I like, and how about this? Due diligence. You and I did due
Mm.
diligence of each other prior to this podcast. We were more than prepared. So instead of just, small talk during cocktail hour, you and we could talk for hours about 1,000 different things. And so what I've done is I've had individuals looking at profiles on LinkedIn or websites, and let's look what the loading dock looks like, or their Christmas party, or, Judy with her funny sweater or something. And so, hey, coach, if you were a telemarketer and you called me and you said, hey, Richard, before I introduce my product, I just got to let you know, I hear you collect pinball machines. I love pinball machines. I would say, yo, coach, you got 3 minutes, credit card at the ready, yours to lose. And I've done that before. I've had people call me, and I take all telemarketing calls because I like to hear it. And
Sure.
I've rarely bought. Usually telecom I'll listen to because of rates, but most of the stuff I don't. They're trying to sell me like auto insurance. I'm not even in the States.
Right.
But I'll listen. And the one thing I'll ask them is your supervisor training you at all? You're saying help like 1,000 times, and you called me Robert. And so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but then again, you'll get the ace that calls you, and they will. You ask, can I hire you? You're
Yeah.
incredible. And these are the people that don't need to study my life story, but it just takes 1 second to see 5 things in common that will break down my defensive barrier and at least give you a breath and to
Nice.
try. And so that's just for me personally. And I've seen that it's worked a lot when I've congratulated individuals on certain anniversaries. Or as I mentioned, your loading dock looks beautiful next to the lake. You looked at that? Of course I did. I checked out your whole website. And so people appreciate that stuff.
Nice. Well, and I like that you're teaching them how to think during the call, not just read a script. Because I've been on calls before where somebody will call me, I'll answer their question, and their follow-up question is what I just answered.
That's
It's
right.
like you're not even paying attention to me, right?
Not even
I'm
paying
asking and
attention.
then reading the next question, then asking. It's like, no, got to listen.
That's right.
Nice. Um, I read that you give back to your alma mater.
Extremely proud.
Yeah.
I
Tell me about that.
graduated Abington High School in Northeast Philadelphia, the Cloud Press, 91. Anyway, very good friend of mine who is now the superintendent of Bucks County. He was the principal, Angelo Barrios. We befriended each other during a reunion years ago, class reunion, and I kept in touch and I would visit. But I got in for business. And I think your audience is going to know some of the famous alumni: Stephen Schwartzman from Blackstone, Amber
Okay.
Bose, Ashton Carter, Secretary of Defense. We had Bob Saget, Michael
Okay.
Buffer, Eddie George, and Sean Wooden, who were in my class, and me. And so um, I'm exceptionally proud of that. But what I did is I set up a second language scholarship for a graduating senior. So I'll pay for their books freshman year. And so, um, why? Because I can relate to that. Why? Because that was me. I was a kid from Northeast Philly that no one in my family spoke Spanish but me. And so, if somebody is going to do that sort of dedicated practice coach, because you don't learn a second language just by the classroom, you need to live it with the movies, with the books, with the intercambios, you spending time with people. And so I love that. And how I got in, but I am exceptionally proud of where I came from. If I did not get the college recommendation letter from the late principal, Norman Schmidt, or from my dedicated Spanish teacher, Doña Esperanza Galshak, there is absolutely no way that I would have gotten into the University of Arizona. My grades were terrible, but they believed in me. And so I believe in paying it forward where the circle is complete. And I'm not saying that I peaked in high school and I want to go back, but there's nothing wrong with respecting and appreciating those that assisted you along the way and believed in you when you're the most delicate, when you were young. Because I tell you what, you don't know the whole story. When I was in seventh grade, I got kicked out of a private school. I was supposed to graduate Germantown Academy. It's an extremely beautiful elite private school in Fort Washington. I think Bradley Cooper went there. Anyway, I was there till seventh grade. My dad and brother graduated there, but I was having a tough year, man. I was losing focus, and the teachers kind of gave up on me. And from being kicked out of a school to then being in a Hall of Fame at another, that to me, between me and your audience, that puts something to bed that was sitting there for a long, long, long time. I wanted to put that to bed. And you want to hear the best part? Here's the greatest part. You know, the person who did kick me out of that school, he was the middle school principal, Senor Casa. He was the Spanish teacher. Now I'm bilingual. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
anyway, look how that goes. And so imagine that. Why am I bringing this up? Because there are certain times in life when you do get knocked down, and a lot of the times it's self-harm. I did it myself, man. I wasn't studying. I was chasing girls. I was being an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you can have a strong comeback and learn from it and release that weight, okay, because you were a kid. I was 13 at the time. What the hell did I know?
Right.
And so that's nice to do that, to let it go and to see if you could make it right. And I have made it right. And I think a lot of people can relate to that in one way or another, especially with academics when you're under
Heck
such
yeah.
pressure or your family is putting that sort of direction to choose a career. Okay. And I didn't want to go into law and be a lawyer like my grandfather went to Harvard Law. My dad went to Columbia Business School. You gotta be
Wow.
kidding me. My brother went to Washington and Lee. So look at that. I went to Arizona. Okay.
There you go.
So I think my coach, I think I was being true to myself. And
Nice.
by being true to myself, I think gave me that sort of distance and endurance because I didn't feel those chains, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So let's talk about courage because
Yeah.
again, 27 years old, head down to Costa Rica to
Okay.
a job you didn't know that much about the area, right? The people, the business. Where
No,
did that courage come from?
the hero's journey. My God, didn't you ever want to leave a castle, slay a dragon, and save a princess?
Oh, it's every day.
Every day. And so we
Every day.
can't explore the Amazon or go to Antarctica. We got to be realistic. But I wanted a life adventure and I didn't want to do it too late or too early. At 27, I felt was a proper age where I was still young, but a man and an adult. And so I could make more mature decisions and see things differently. And so I wanted that life's challenge. And as I mentioned, Spanish made it easier. I had good friends already here in Costa Rica. It, you get butterflies sometimes or tingles, cosquillas. And in movies, they play weird music behind you. They're saying, hey, this is the moment when you know. And I knew the moment I walked off that plane, I was going to be living there. And why? As John Wayne said, I was going to die with my boots on, coach. So you keep asking me courage. Courage is not being reckless or stupid or just bungee jumping and stuff and just going for it. Courage is living with yourself. Damn it.
Yeah.
Courage
Yeah.
is looking at your eyes in the mirror. Courage is making your bed in the morning for self-respect. Courage is being the bigger man and saying either I'm sorry or I love you. And so I wanted to shed some skin. And I also wanted to see if I took myself out of a certain element, which I'm used to, the United States, could I possibly shine? Without any family connections, nothing. You want to know the first car I bought here? I paid $200 for it. I bought a Yugo, a 1993 Yugo GVX. Yeah, real Yugo. Yeah. So second gear didn't work. I had to go from first to third. But my point being is, I wanted real life. A Rolex didn't matter to me. I didn't need to play in that sort of game in the States. I could. But I wanted to see what it would be like. I wanted to meet Richard and see what would go on if I really got to know myself and see how I could handle myself during certain situations. And what I did learn is a couple things that you are a guest in another country, okay, and you should ask questions to learn things, to not insult, but to engage and to be a part of a group. And I don't know what I did, but I've been loved. I have people that have worked with me for over a decade. And I have my beautiful wife that has been with me for 25 years. I've made a life for myself. I did a dream. Now I had to get past parents' guilt. And there was a couple other obstacles that I had to make big boy decisions on. And usually it's the naysayers. Why? Because you never learned Spanish, you never moved abroad, and you never started a call center. So how the hell are you giving me advice?
Right.
And it's almost like the parent that doesn't want you to go on the roller coaster. Okay, man, coach and I might puke, but we also might not puke and have the best time of our life going loop de loops and living life. And so I want to be a romantic. I really wanted to taste it. I didn't want to lose my own self-respect of living life, even if it was just for a day. And so you want to hear something really weird? I would stay up late. In the first 2 months was probably the greatest of my life because it was really the transition. I could feel it, but I was staying up late. I was getting up early and I had more energy in my entire life. My Spanish level was in this direction, 90 degrees. I mean, it was an advanced expert level, but forget it all day long. I'm going out dancing, having fun, trying food, seeing the most beautiful beaches in the world and the surfing and the rainforest and the monkeys. And I'm living a painting dream. I'm living in a vacation where I don't have to go back to Philly. I get to stay. Yo, coach, it was like every day was a Saturday and I didn't want it to end. And as much as people said, come back and this and that, I kept saying, no, I need to keep this going. And then when I was 35 years old, I realized time was a ticking and I wasn't getting any younger. And so that's when I decided to start the business. I had the impulse control and the maturity and a little bit of capital. But you're probably saying, Richard, you're talented. Why don't you start this at 25? Coach, there was no way I could have done it at 25. Yeah. Not even close. No, sir, not even close. I wouldn't have handled it even close. And so I believe things happen in stages and you shouldn't rush, but you also should just not sit at home and wait. I had to get out there. It just took a little bit longer to reach the destination, but my ship was on the ocean. At least I left the port. And I knew that first step, something was going to happen. I knew it. I could tell it. And as I mentioned before, my good friend, I was willing to go all the way and die with my boots on. And if you are that sort of committed to something, I think that's a beautiful thing to have that sort of drive in your life that keeps you going.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, people lose that, I think, or never experience it themselves. They never find it in themselves.
You know what happens, Coach? They surround themselves with negative Nancy's, Debbie Downers, and losers. I'm not saying life isn't tough.
They're comfortable.
Yeah. So how many guys did I know that's going to move abroad and start a call center? How about none? I mean, I had to be, as I mentioned, this romantic that when I meet doctors, attorneys, architects, and all these other people, and they go, what do you do for a living? And I explain, they go, oh, you got to be kidding. Yeah. No, not kidding. I mean, I had to find my own way.
Nice. What do you look for in a leader when you're interviewing folks to hire on stuff? How do you tell those people that are really going to make it and they're going to be team leads or something like that within the call center? How do you pick those people out? What do you look for?
Can I go through the 3 stages, Coach? Sure. The first stage is the interview process. Forget showing up on time and filling out your resume, whatever. I'm going to ask you to turn your piece of paper over and give me a couple paragraphs of a coming of age moment. I want to know if you beat up a bully or saved a kitten. Why? Because it's zig and zag, loosey-goosey. Coach is going to ask you a question, and I want to know if you can get off the script and answer it. So that's the number one thing. And I want to see what you answer me. If it's something if you're a marathon runner, did you learn the violin? Or are you a professional chef? That shows commitment and dedication in other areas outside the call center. And so I look at that. So it's a lot of self-respect there. So let's just say you've been with me for a while. Well, just don't tell me you want to be a supervisor in your resume. Absolutely not. I want to know what the other people say about you. Are you showing up on time, doing your calls, positive attitude, supporting others? It's not me that will promote you. It's the other people that will say, yes, he's the captain of the team. So that's the second thing. And I guess the third thing is time. If someone has been with you forever, that shows just incredible loyalty and commitment. I'll give you an example. I've had someone with me pretty much 18 years. His name is Anthony. And I gave him a pinball machine last year. It's a hooked pinball machine, a Data East. Why? Because first I have a bunch of pinball. And second, how do you thank someone enough? Yeah. I also gave my CTO a 1958 Seaberg jukebox when I
Wow.
promoted him to chief technical
Wow.
officer. And so yeah, I could always give someone money, which I do, but I believe special presents are the things that
Yeah.
make people there. So how do you, what do you say to somebody that's been with you for 18 years? It's not an employee anymore.
Right.
It's a confidant. It's someone you must take out to dinner and break bread and ask how they're doing. And these are the people that even though they're on the clock, they're really not. They can take a break when they want. If they're late, I'm not going to fire you. And if
Yeah.
you are late, I'm going to do everything I can to keep you and tell the client that do not fire him. And so there's a certain stage where it almost becomes family. And so I like organic leadership. I hate shiny objects and, you know, starting quarterback attitudes. I think it's great to have confidence. You're
Sure.
great, but I think sometimes it's almost overbearing. People
Yeah.
need to respect the certain space that's around them and be more noticed instead of seen, if that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you allow the team to say, yeah, this is somebody we would follow. I don't think businesses do that enough. They take somebody who's a great uh, practitioner and move them up into a leadership role. They're not a leader. They're good at what they do. They may not have any leadership skills whatsoever. And the people know this is not somebody that I would want to work with, intentionally. So I think it's important to get the buy-in from the
Hey, coach, let me
employees.
ask you a question. You ever
Sure.
watch Band of Brothers?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
just watched that again for the second time. And when you see Dick Winters and everybody, all they say is that he was the greatest leader.
Yeah.
And you're talking about real men and the bravest of the brave. And to become a leader of that, you have to be exceptional. And I always wanted the respect of the people in a certain way, not from the title. The first way I earned their respect was by at least asking your name and properly introducing myself. Because most people say most bosses never did that.
Sure.
Secondly, I would do at least a couple hours of a training class with them, not for my own ego, because I enjoy it, and B, I think I can pay it forward. I got some things to
Yep.
share. And so people look to me, I'm 2 for 2 now in the call center Olympics. The third thing, I speak your language. Most gringo bosses do not speak that language. I'm 3 for 3.
Right.
Number 4, let's go play some air hockey. Number 5, I'll break bread with you. These are things, yeah, but Richard, you should. But guess what? As you told me before, coach, most people don't.
Most people don't. Most managers, when the company gets so big, they don't even know everybody's name. They don't walk
Well, it's
through
not
and say
easy.
hello to people. Well, I know, but you know what I'm saying? Uh, one of the example of good leadership, in a restaurant, I bring this up all the time. You're in a restaurant, your food arrives at the table, you're sitting there eating, and somebody walks over and says, "How is everything going here?" It's a manager checking on how things are at your table. Look at their feet. If their feet are pointed towards your table, that means they care. They're there to find out how you are doing, and they really want a response, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're engaged. If their feet are pointed up the aisle this way, they're doing a drive-by. It's like, hey, how's everything here? How's everything here? How's everything here? And they're off. They don't care what you're going to say. They've checked the box. I did what I was told to do. And I think managing in a business is the same way. If you're walking through the office, you're walking through the shop, wherever. If you are going to stop and talk to somebody, engage with them. Stop, face them, engage with them. Don't talk just about business. How are you? How are things going? Hey, how was that softball game the other day? Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what builds those teams where people will go out of their way and do what's needed. That's builds that culture to where people say, "This is where I want to be."
Coach, you also must be authentic. I just can't call you champ. Why is coach the
Right.
champ? Well, last week he did 99. That's my main man. And I heard that call you have with Mrs. Jones. And so they're like, you listened to my call? Of course I did, coach. And then they're like, and then you wonder why, when we spoke earlier about the knock on the door, come into my office and talk to me, it just doesn't have to be through pinball.
Yeah.
It's once again breaking down those barriers of what their last supervisors and bosses didn't do. And so there's
Right.
an expression in Spanish, it's borrar y cuenta nueva. It's to wipe away and have a new slate. And so
Yes.
I say to them in the first day of class, don't judge me on your last boss. That's why you're not there anymore. And I'm not
Right.
going to judge you on Billy that quit the other day. And so why don't both you and I start off in a proper and a healthy way? And most people are supposed to fear me. I'm their boss. I breathe
Yeah.
fire, and all I want to do is fire you. What movies are you watching? Look at the
Right.
sort of investment that you have in people. My job is to promote you, not to demote and to fire you. I don't give people walk of shames. I
Right.
don't curse on the floor. And so, um, if you want to play big boss ego, then go for it. People are going to quit. But
Yeah.
if you want to have that sort of thing when you bump into somebody at the mall and they say, Richard, I just want to introduce you to my wife. This is the best boss I ever had, and this and that. And then I
Mm.
will say, hey, Doña Sylvia, your husband Jose is the greatest person we have at the office. We love him there. And so I've walked outside 1,000 times to compliment a son to a mother or to a wife or husband or something. And you have no idea
Oh yeah.
what that gift that keeps on giving. And so it's those little things on how you make them feel to reduce that attrition or to have that sort of openness and candidness where people will speak with you. But it's changed today. It's mostly virtual post COVID. And the majority of the resumes that we're receiving, they're asking to work from home. Are they able to do it? Yes. Are we able to do it? Yes. But it has completely eliminated the sort of synergy or between me and you and your audience, my special sauce.
Makes it very
There's a
tough.
huge, bro, when I'm with these people in the training room, in the arcade, on the floor, there's real magic there. You can really feed off of it. And when it's remote, people are isolated, they get in their routine, and it's a lot of people I don't even know that we hire. I mean, I know you and stuff, but it's not like it was.
Yeah.
And we'll never get as close as we could. And so um, it's changed. I can't complain. I'm still in business. COVID
Yeah.
crushed a lot of businesses. But then again, I completely knew it's kind of like new wave to grunge. I could completely see the change of my industry where instead of this united linguistic environment of 23-year-old kids that are having the best time of their life, they're all separated now and
Yeah.
kind of like they're on their phones when they're in the lunchroom. And so I that's so sad when
It
you go
is.
into the break room and there's a table of 6 to 8 people and each single one of them is on their phone and you know what else
Yeah.
they're watching Japanese anime. I just
Yeah.
don't get
Yeah.
that.
I know. Go figure.
Yeah, right.
Go figure. Well, Richard, this has been awesome. I look forward to this conversation because I think this, like I said, building something here is one thing. Building something in another country is something totally different. And the way you've expanded, grown that culture is just, it's awesome. Great job.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate
Very
it.
good job. If somebody wants to level up their communication skills, if they want to learn what it is you're doing down there, and if they want to, I don't know, build the same type thing, or if they want to look for your services, how can they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I think they should buy a plane ticket and fly down and visit me,
There
especially
you go.
during
I'm on
winter
my way.
time.
Yep.
Yeah, but Costa Rica's callcenter.com. You can always look me
Okay.
up. And once again, with your podcast and other ones that I've done, I just like to share ideas. It's most people hate telemarketers, and I'm not selling a book or a seminar. This is not
Yeah.
1995. You're my buddy. I love being here. I just wanted to share ideas. But my suggestion for people, it's a couple things. I think we have the technology today where you can listen to yourself how you speak. And most people don't like how they sound. Well, you have
No,
no
they don't.
choice. You can't nose job your voice. And so you might want to once again change vocabulary so it's softer, more diplomatic. I mentioned about adjustments of tone, that's the
Mhm.
phonetics. And if you want to really play the game, then why don't you listen twice and speak? So you might say surf instead of turf. It's like
Mhm.
choose your own adventure. You choose, and then I'll talk about it. I mean, enough of me going through the whole ice cream menu. I might as well ask you, what do you want? And then
Yeah.
when you start talking chocolate, we go down that way. And so there's just certain ways to lead the dance
Yeah.
and to give that reinforcement and to tie it down and to confirm and checkpoint and to mention other people that got you in this and to due diligence. And if you do this, stress gets reduced. You'll feel more comfortable in conversations. It's almost like being well versed. You said it earlier. You practice this. You're well versed on this. Yeah, brother. If you sing the song 1,000 times, you can do it. And so, if
That's true.
anybody of nobody, hasn't anyone who's watched Glengarry Glen Ross, they have
Mm.
memorized Alec Baldwin's Blake scene when he talks to Gene the Machine about always be closing and attention, interest, decision, and action. We know it all. Or in Boiler Room when they're going through the pitch, when Vin Diesel's pitching in front of everyone, telling the doctor should he send it to his mansion or his office, and clever stuff, cute stuff. And so if that is what you want to do, how about this? I'll make the best suggestion for your audience. And this is how I was able to grow my own skills. You want to know it? I'll let you know the secrets.
Absolutely.
There are three people your audience must study. The first one is the actor Dirk Benedict when he was Templeton Peck in the A-Team. And if you like the original Battlestar Galactica, he was Starbuck. But watch him as a face man. Oh man, was that smooth delivery. The second person you should study is Pierce Brosnan as Remington Steele.
Remington Steele. Yep.
What a show is Stephanie Zimbalist. Man, you got to watch. And that's why I loved his suits and the limo and all that stuff. But here's the master of masters. Now, I can't imitate him or you're going to think I'm, acting goofy. But there was an actor by the name of Basil Rathbone.
Yes.
And he used to
the
do
original Sherlock Holmes.
That's right, with Nigel Bruce. And if you want to watch those 17 movies or listen to the 100 old-time radio episodes, that guy was perfect in regards to his rhetoric. Now, I don't have Queen's English, and half of his vocabulary I had to look up, but this was one of the few shows where I would rewind, and practice, because I would get tingles. I go, man, this guy is money. It's like butter. I go, what is he doing? And instead of studying mathematics and architecture and engineering, I was watching Faceman, Remington, and Sherlock. Nice. And I was picking up vocabulary, rhetoric, and certain rebuttal skills, and I would borrow them. And I would use that on dates and in class and in business. And for some odd reason, people would look at me like I'm clever. Man, that's just the face man. And so that's my advice to your audience. It will definitely give them a repertoire of some incredible things to say when you're speaking with people.
That's awesome. I was just wondering, are any a book or anything like that, any training courses you have available for people who want to get better at phone skills?
I'm not the biggest fan at all in these self-help books because they made their money. I think a lot of it is just you know what it is? It's Daniel's son. Just go on the beach and make your kick. Wax on and wax off. The more you practice, the better you feel. Like my Spanish, the better I got at it. And so there's no quick fix. There's no quick fix. And so once again, it's just practice and studying and recording yourself and studying rhetoric. But I think that's it for me. But in regards to these books, why don't you just read something to put you in a good mood? Or why don't you, instead of reading or doing the traditional thing, which to me is a chore, why don't you try to stimulate your other senses to see if you can capture something? Get a certain smell. Eat some pumpkin pie. I don't know. Listen to certain music. When I listen to In Excess, it puts me in a certain mood. And so just by trying to read Zig Ziglar or do a Tony Robbins seminar, that's one thing. But if I'm listening to my favorite music while in the gym, ripping it out, there's a very good chance through that decompressed stimulation, my mind can wander and then I can start figuring things out. And so I think the best sort of self-improvement is self-analysis. And I think that's pretty much the only way that someone will be able to make those improvements.
Nice. Good job. Good advice. Absolutely.
Yeah, coach. Yeah.
Good advice. Listen, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us. Really appreciate it.
I got one last question. What are those two guitars in the background?
Oh, that's only the two that you see. There are 6 of them along the wall and one over here on the floor.
Well,
it's
cool.
just for me, just not in a band or anything like that. Just love to, that's the way I decompress. Sit up in my big leather chair and pull out a guitar and just start plinking. So.
Yo, coach, I got to share one last thing and I'll let you go. I hired Gary Beers of In Excess to play on a song that I produced in Costa Rica.
Wow.
There's a local band here called Igni Faroki, and that's one of my best friends here. And he produced a song called Shine Like the Sun. And then I saw Gary Beer's website that said you can hire me to play bass on a track. So I sent him the track. He said he'd do it. I hired him to do the bass, to do some jamming on it and do a performance video. And I got one of my dreams is to work with one of the members of my favorite band. And so if you want to talk about an electromagnetic energy transfer, I believe in that stuff. A smile, a handshake, or something. The fact that one of the members of In Excess took some time to do something for me, you got to be kidding me. So that's a gift that keeps on giving. So your audience should check it out. Shine Like the Sun with Gary Beers. And you'll see what my call center looks like. I'll make a small cameo in that as well.
Very cool. Or can they find that on YouTube?
Oh yeah, and listen, it's just like an MTV video. There's pinball machines, there's arcade, and tons of cute chicks bouncing up and down. I mean,
there you go.
It's like a 13-year-old dream. So go check out the video.
Awesome. Very cool. Good stuff. And the answer is always no if you don't ask, right? Why not ask?
I don't mind the no. I don't mind it at all.
Don't mind the no. All right. Listeners, hope you guys are taking notes. A lot of good information here. I will have links to the website. And are you active on LinkedIn? Can people reach out?
I am active on LinkedIn. Yes, of course.
All right. I will put all that in the show notes so you know how to get in touch with Richard. And share this episode with your family, friends, your colleagues. Don't be afraid to hear no. And don't be afraid to chase your dreams. And step outside your comfort zone. That's where you're going to find success, is outside of your comfort zone. All right. If you want help with that, I'm Coach Harlan. You can reach me right here at this podcast. Anyways, share this with your family, friends, colleagues, and stick around because there's always more coming. That's it for me, Coach Harlan, saying so long for now.